Now, the reality is that the technological displacement carries with it the amplification and acceleration of inequality.
The writing's on the wall. We can see where this is going. Lots of talk about agents.
The transitional period for catching up between the gap between society or culture and technology, that's always been a thing.
What are we losing in terms of our personal judgments?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? That was a very short intro. This is the Daily AI Show, coming to you live every day at 10 a.m. Eastern. That threw me off. Today is November 26th, 2024. And this is the Daily AI Show. See, I'm completely backwards now, Beth, because that came in so quick. With us, we have Andy, Beth, and I'm Brian. I think we'll also have Jyunmi here in a bit. And what are we talking about today? So today we're talking about sort of redefining productivity, what an AI-driven future really looks like when we're talking about what, in fact, is productivity. What drives humans? What do we consider to be getting the job done? How do we feel fulfilled with what we're doing? These are all really, really important sort of social questions that we need to explore. We talk a lot on this show about the technology, building the LLMs, what's in the background, how are they getting inference down, all this kind of stuff and working with latency. But there's also the, hey, hold on a second, what is this going to do to us as a society? And I think there's some really important conversations that not just me, us, we feel like there's some really important conversations that need to be had around this. So that's really where we are today. Like, what happens when we move beyond simple automation? Because the writing's on the wall, we can see where this is going. Lots of talk about agents. We talk a lot about it in the show. We have some predictions of what we think are going to happen in 2025 and probably quickly beyond that. So if we do get past simple automations, if AI really does start taking over some of our bigger human tasks that are not just one-offs or sit down at a computer and shoot an email, but maybe a day's worth of stuff, how do we react as humans? How do we react as a society? Are we going to change the definition of what fulfills us? These are all the questions for today. And like I said, we have everybody, Andy, Beth, Jyunmi, and I'm Brian. And who would like to take it from there? Andy it is. Andy, what are your... He raised his hand. Nobody saw it. I saw it. Andy's up.
Okay, I'll jump into this. So The End of Productivity is actually the title of an article that I read recently on Every, and I think it might have been the inspiration for somebody, including this overall question about the impact on work and society, because the thesis of that article is that machine-driven productivity, historically and importantly now accelerating with AI, has really enormous effects. And we as humans, in terms of what we can produce in the workplace, just really cannot compete. At least on, mechanical productivity of the outputs that are necessary for economic work product. But there's a couple of different dimensions of productivity that you can imagine. I consider myself to be, tremendously productive when I'm spending time, in my own, in inadequate ways, trying to work with my grandson and allow that human being to come into society in a way that I think is, well prepared. And at 1 year old, that's not a deep effort on my part, but, attention and, being present to that is a way of producing something that is important to society. So humans, have a contribution to make. The question is, will there be an end to work output productivity as a measure of what a human's value is? And the thesis of that article I'm referring to, which I think I can bring up here, and we can add to the thread for anybody who's in the chat and wants to see, which article that is. But it's on Every, and it's just called The End of Productivity. So if you want to search for that, you can. But the thesis is that now humans have to shift all of their active work toward productivity away from the mechanical production of content and output and work product, instead, to creativity. And creativity is something that, the argument is that it's not simply accessible by AI because it's a derivation of logic and patterns that are observed, but it's also triggered by, and it's a product of, human traumas, mistakes, human ingenuity, as distinct from what sort of AI-driven ingenuity may be. And so in the long run, we are going to be the directors as opposed to the actors in this orchestration of productivity. And I think that analogy with, what a director is, like a lot of directors, come from being actors, but there are other directors, and I'm talking about movie and film and creative production like that. The director has a vision for what is going to be done and is providing direction to the actor, whose skills in reproducing over and over again for take after take after take, an emotion or a presentation of information and context for the advancement of the narrative, which is now by analogy what we're trying to advance as society. That action of the director calling action and having the AIs and the humans now perform, we're moving away from performance as a measure of productivity to insights and creativity as a measure of our contributions to the advancement of society. Okay, is that a good entree to the?
It is. I feel like I just fell in a trap myself, because I'll tell you what I was going to say, and then as I was listening to you, I was like, oh, you know what? No, Andy is not saying this, but I want to share, because I was going to say, in a very simplistic term, as I was listening to you, you cook in your kitchen today versus 100 years ago, right? And you, for lack of a better term, I was going to say, direct how the meal is prepared, but you use tools like a modern day oven that are going to preset the temperature and stuff like that. But I think that's overly simplistic for this conversation, because while that's true, and that is a good example of where we used to be as a society, excuse me, and now where we have modern day tools, the difference is, as of right now, the oven doesn't have AI in it. And I think your point is really valid, Andy, which is, that's a trap, what I just did, which is think of something that existed in the past and try to apply it the same way and go, oh, it's like cooking. No, it's like what you just said. And what we have to think is bigger, because it is more like directing other humans. So maybe it's not, I have a really intelligent oven that's not going to burn my food. And I have this mixer that means I don't have to manually crush and mix, and I have grinders and I have all these tools. No. I have a whole kitchen of highly intelligent, specialized people, and I'm going to direct them like an orchestra and ensure that what we get out the other side is new, beautiful creations, new insights into culinary, yada, yada, yadas. So anyway, I just want to call that out, because I think it's a trap. It's so easy to think of, oh, this is what it was 100 years ago, and AI is like this today. And you go, yeah, but no. We're talking about human intelligence. And that drastically changes the conversation from, I have a smarter oven, to, I have 1 million humans I can deploy on this, like that.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna jump on that and sort of go with both of you, because I think one of that surfaces for me one of the things that people are very afraid about with AI, which is, what are we losing in terms of our personal judgments? So 100 years ago, you were tasting whatever you were cooking the whole time. And if you're in a restaurant kitchen, one of the things that you often notice is that the chef, right, the person who's like really responsible for how things get presented and taste, they're also tasting things all the time. we are now in a place where people can read the instructions on the box, follow them, put it down to eat without tasting. And I grew up with a mother like that. I will say, my siblings all cook really well. I'm a box reader because I don't really care. So, but that is one of the things, and one of the questions that people ask as we have systems that can automate and do things for us, are we losing something in the process? And what this article was about, and this sort of challenge is, we're being asked to focus on the human doing the thing that has the most impact, but we're not great at measuring what those are or impact in general, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like it's a lot of pass fail, right? As opposed to, I want to do this again. I don't want to do this again. That was cool. That was helpful. That was whatever. But we don't really have, this was really impactful. What was? Let's go back and look at those sorts of things. I think this is a really interesting conversation. Curious. So Brian and I are box readers.
Yeah. Listen, okay. Let's go to Jyunmi. Okay.
Keeping with the cooking analogy, I love to cook. I like the ability to, the analytical side of my mind likes to work with all the ingredients, and with the right kind of combination, you can create deliciousness, right? I think how that relates to the conversation is, I don't think, I agree, Beth, that we have lost or it is not encouraged to review. It's not encouraged to draw out from our results and things like that. But I think that's a symptom of how, from the, we'll call it efficiencies of, the last, it's like 70 years now. The last few decades, where that's what it's all been about, right? It's been about this core set of metrics is how we evaluate everything, and that's what's important, right? And everything's built around that. What I think we can draw from this end of productivity idea is, ideally, in the most ideal situation, everyone will be empowered enough to be able to do the things that they're passionate about, right? I don't want to work for someone. I don't want a job. I want a passion, right? I want something where I can pour in all of my time, energy, creativity, and gain value from doing that. Now, there'll be different things for different people, sure, and I'm sure there are people out there who love to work the spreadsheet, who love to work the numbers, and that's what they'll be passionate about. I'm more passionate about more creative things. I like living in the virtual worlds that I created in my head, those kinds of things, right? Those narratives, those stories. And those are the things that I'm really passionate about. So if a passionate person is working on what their calling is, or what really connects with them or resonates with them, that's a different kind of productivity. You're going to see, those expansions of those fields because people love it, right? I think a lot of the systems we have today are built around putting people into a box so that they produce a widget or produce a number, and they want that standardized and just make as many of those as possible. And I don't think that's an efficient way to grow or to make use of human productivity or human creativity. All right. We are so divergent as a species. We're all individuals, individual wills and things like that. And I think it's those kinds of things that we should really focus on And if everyone could, and this is where the soapbox comes in a little bit, and if everyone didn't have to worry about the day-to-day necessities of the modern world, then we could jump on that. And there's a possibility there for AI. There's a possibility there to take care of the mundane so that we can be more human. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, you make me think of my dad, actually, Jyunmi, and I've mentioned him before. He retired from Delta Airlines in 2005, went on to do many years of consulting work after that in the airline industry. But my dad was airline his entire career, TWA to Western to Delta Airlines, 3 companies, 30 plus years, right? Started as a mechanic. I mentioned this before, but started as a mechanic. So blue collar, transitioned to white collar, some setbacks as Western was bought out by Delta and we moved from California to Georgia. And it was like, yeah, go sit at that desk in that cubicle, right? You're not Delta people, right? So then you got to move back up to the system. Well, my dad retired. He was the vice president of worldwide maintenance for Delta Airlines, or a title similar to that. It was very important to my dad. I'd still say to this day, the pride he had in his knowledge and what he was capable of and what he had to offer very complex maintenance schedules. As you can imagine, the complexities of running a maintenance hangar, of multiple hangars in Atlanta, as well as other cities and things like that were part of his job. And as we talk about this, releasing people from widgets to creativity, I don't know how my dad had this technology existed and deployed in 2000, 5 years before he retired. I don't know that it would have gone over particularly well for my dad. I think it would have been very difficult for him to watch a technology come in and perhaps have the intelligence of what he was able to do with maybe some enhanced efficiencies. And I don't know how he would have pivoted. I don't know. I mean, there's no way to know how he would have pivoted if somebody said, Jim, we no longer need you to do X, Y, Z because we have a technology that can do this 1,000 times over. We have 1,000 gyms and they're all equally as smart as you. So now what we need you to do is think outside the box and be creative. Now that we've solved these productivity issues, we've dropped costs here, we've improved efficiency, we turn over planes faster, right? They get back out on the runway. This is important, super important stuff. If you're going to redo an engine, there's just a lot of parts. I used to learn about this stuff all the time. There's just, as you can imagine, literally, figuratively, or literally parts and pieces, millions of them and thousands of them, right? That go on a plane with every rivet, da, 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 da. So then they said, hey, Jim, we don't need you to figure this part out. By the way, you've gotten 30 years worth of experience of figuring this out. That's kind of handled. So now what we're paying you for is your intuition, your knowledge base, and thinking creatively outside the box of what the AI can do. Maybe he would have thrived, but I think it would have been a hard pivot for him because so much of my dad's internal worth that he put on himself was built into the pride in knowing that he could walk out on the floor and people would say, Mr. Masseri, great to see you. Hey, really appreciate that. And my dad could talk shop with anybody, anywhere, because he had done every single type of job up the chain. That's tough, I think, from a psychological standpoint to deal with that. And I do have concerns for people that may be in that position in the next 5 to 10 years, where they're watching something that they have immense pride in, have built their career over, and quite frankly, put their personality on. Their job is their personality and what they can do. It's their worth. And you strip that from somebody and say, we still see you as valuable, but now you have to redefine what's valuable to you, what makes you worthwhile. I think that would have been the difficult part, is my dad or anybody like him would have had to have reevaluated for himself what makes him worthwhile as a human. That's tricky. I think that's really tricky. And multiply this by millions of jobs, of people who have jobs like this and will be affected by this in the next couple of years. I don't know. I don't have the answers for it. It just makes me go,
I agree. The transitional period for catching up between the gap between society or culture and technology. That's always been a thing, right? AI just has made that even a bigger gap because of how quickly it develops. Now, what I would like to see in that situation is from people I've spoken to and in different positions I've worked in, things like that, is a lot of the times people are in a position and they have that value of the pride and whatnot because they make sure that it happens the right way, right? They make sure that everything is going well. Now we've enabled them to make that part the easy part, and they're able to, expand and express on other levels, the things that bring them joy. Because most of the viewpoints that I've been seeing is, if I didn't have to do this, right, then I could really make this shine. But I can't spend too much time on that because I'm spending the vast majority of my time doing all this other stuff instead.
Yeah, the winners. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if we can give them the opportunity to go, you have a great pride in all of your work, this is your identity. All right, now run with it. You have the freedom and ability to take it wherever you want. But yes, being given that ability, letting the leash off, so to speak, that will be scary. Absolutely. Because I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, I've been in this cog kind of system. I've been in this is my 9 to 5. This is my 7, my 5 days a week, all of those kinds of things. And then now it's sort of like the blank page problem. It's like, here you go. You have a tool that can help you develop and create any written work you want.
Yeah.
Go. How do I start? Right.
I won't get into the firefighter, but I'll say, like, just as a point to that, and then go, Andy, is when I was a firefighter, my identity was being a firefighter. Period. And end of, like, so I get it. And if I was still a firefighter and there was these AI technologies coming in, I would be affected by this right today. I guarantee you, because I'd be 20 years into my career with about 8 to go till retirement. And I would be seriously going like, this is me. Everything I am is a firefighter. It's very easy in those roles to get wrapped up to that. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No apology necessary. I want to go to the broader issue that's behind what we're talking about now, which is technological displacement. It's happened in previous, revolutions of industrial mechanics, if you will. But I don't think we've ever faced a scale and a completeness of technological displacement as we are now in the coming decades. So then the fundamental question is there, as we have in the short term, this displacement of the drudgery work that we have to do that allows us to be more creative and actually may introduce a human input to the development of increased overall productivity of society? Do we ultimately face the displacement of even human ingenuity and creativity as a result of the capabilities that are enabled by AI? And let me just paint a picture for you. There's some discussion now about the combination of robotics and AIs in simulated environments, including the ability to simulate humans in massive numbers in environments. And there's a concept called the world engine. NVIDIA actually has a product that's designed to do this at the sort of the manufacturing scale right now. But the researchers behind it are thinking about creating a world, an environment in which robotic AI can practice what it means to be active in the three-dimensional physical world. And so that they arrive through millions of iterations in the simulated world, in the world engine, they arrive at deep experience, and they've been exposed to traumas and accidents and ingenuities that are delivered by all the millions of other players in that simulated environment. So now you have the future vision of a robot that has all the physical capabilities of a human, that has also had the opportunity to have thousands of years of experience prior to ever even stepping onto whether it's the factory floor or the broadcast stage or whatever. That whatever you can think of doing as a human, a robot plus AI in a world engine simulation can, without any prior experience in the real world, step in as a far more advanced expert than any human could, including in roles, because of this accidental nature of the iterations within the world engine, including the ability to come up with novel approaches, with insights that go way beyond what the happenstance thinking and ingenuity of a human brain can provide, just through brute force of repetition. So when that happens, when you can have a robot come out and do anything that you can imagine without any practice in the real world, literally, it takes you give it an instruction, it takes a moment, it's done that a million times in concert with other AIs in the world engine. And now it can produce whatever it is that you want as a behavior or a performance or work product. How does a human even fit into that world? What kind of things can we contribute? And Cisco was one of the ones who was raising the question, well, isn't it possible that AI can eventually, replicate human creativity and ingenuity? And I think what that model of the world engine says is yes.
Ed, I'm glad you brought up Cisco and what you were just talking about. I had to step away for a second, but the idea of like digital twins, right? The replication and being trained outside of the actual physical environment, I think is what you were saying, right, Andy? In sense that, let's give a scenario to this. It's a kind of an interesting one. So when I have my CrossFit gym, not my gym, it's not a CrossFit story, a local business in the same light industrial park, for a time, we would hear these like pops from our gym, but we didn't really know what it was. Then we had these guys that kind of showed up at our gym one time and they're like, hey, would you just do like a workout for our folks? Yeah, sure. We'll do that. Right. Where I was a small business, whatever. Got into talking. They're like, hey, we own the factory down in the light industrial park. I'm like, all right, what do you do? They're like, we make semi-automatic weapons. And we're like, oh, really? They're like, yeah. And we're like, that's what the pops are. They're like, yeah, we have this like soundproof closet in the back because you have to actually test the weapons, as you would imagine. And there was this whole thing of the shoot the thing, right? The interesting part about this is this was a former church and then actually is still a church now. So it's funny that it was church, semi-automatic weapon facility church. Anyway, they said, do you want to get a tour? And we said, of course we said, like, and me and everybody else in the class were like, yes, right now we would like to have a tour of that. That sounds interesting. And so we go down to this thing, and anyway, I'll speed this story up. We get in there, it's a bunch of CNC machines on the floor. And they're like, this mills this part of the weapon, and this mills this part of the weapon. And they're like, but the real room is, and with that, they roll back this fake wall. That's the only way I can explain it. Like a massive fake wall in this thing. And then there's this other room of some other crazy stuff going on, whatever, right? My point to this though is I walked into this place and I saw all these CNC machines. Let's say this place still existed. It doesn't. Like I said, it's a church again. But let's say this place still existed in my town and this company. And one day the workers say, hey, we're going to shut down for between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Everybody says, fantastic. They're like, yep. Everybody come back on the 2nd of January. Everybody comes back. All the CNC machines have been replaced with robots. And to your point, Andy, they don't need training. They've been doing that job a bajillion times in some digital environment, and they have just deployed. And now they walk in and they go, the thing is, we don't need as many people to be experts on the CNC machines because they know everything about these robots can do everything that you could do and more. We only need 5 of you to kind of overlook the process and have a general understanding of when things might break down and where to go into it. And the rest of you, unfortunately, are out of a job because these robots are more than capable. And I think we're going to see these kind of overnight disruptions quite often, because once these Kumba arms, if you guys don't know what a Kumba arm is, that's a very popular robot. If you're into like not Harry Potter, but Orlando rides, there is I forget which ride it is. It's one of the Harry Potter rides, and the whole seating that you're in goes this way and goes this way. Well, behind that, if you turn on the lights, it's this big robotic Kumba arm. And this Kumba arm takes you and all the people sitting in your seats for the ride, and through the magic of making a ride, moves you through all the spaces and digital screens this way and animatronics that way, whatever. You deploy a bunch of these Kumba arms that can move in 360 degrees of rotation and motion and are all now smarter than anything. And to Cisco's point about, we baked in the intuition, because what are we saying? While we were also training it in the digital world, we also gave it all the best information of all the different variances and scenarios that might happen, which is essentially, I have a hunch, or I have an intuition about this, is just 30 years of experience in a lot of cases. I give the examples of the firefighter chiefs that I used to work with. 30 years of experience on how to handle this fire. What happens when we deploy this overnight on factory floors? And what do you do with the people? And then for the people who are left, how do you, like my dad, how do you work through that? that you're no longer necessary in that fashion.
Let me add just a nuance about this idea of training through experience in the simulated world engine. It doesn't require that each of the robots go through the training and simulation, because as soon as one robot's done it, it can give that to any other robot that asks for it. So you don't have that instantaneous nature of the experience base through simulated experiences by AIs in the world engine is immediately conveyable to any other robot, but not to humans. Humans have to learn slowly. Robots do not have to learn slowly.
And they can get over there in updates. They can be learning continuously. Let's think about this. You may see
they learn instantaneously because they just tap into the world engine and say, this is what I need to know. Bang, I have it.
Yeah. And anything that's new and being learned, and any new intuition that's being built into the language model, is instantaneously deployed to however many end tools, robots, that there are. Need a new robot? Great. It doesn't need to be trained. It was already trained. They were all trained together once.
Yeah. You know what this implies? The end to productivity. There's no point in trying to be productive as a human anymore. Well, eventually. I mean, right now, all of us are saddled with the requirements of actually being productive in order to sustain ourselves. But there is a future. There's a possibility of a future where that vision of the world engine and robots that are capable that way, and inexpensive and sort of widely available distribution of power, energy, all of those things combining together make for an opportunity for human experience to be very corporeal and somatic. And we spend all our time just loving and experiencing the unique thing that is the biology of being human. Like the drives that we have, like those aren't part of the AI plus robotics, intelligence. Only bodies can have those experiences. And so we focus on those things supported by the infrastructure that is created by the emergence of this robotics plus AI world.
I need an AI they just got to make sure that they don't have will, and then we're good, right? We're safe, because if they can learn better than us and faster,
Safe. You did it. You fixed it, Jyunmi.
There you go. Just make sure they don't get will and our consciousness, and we'll be fine. Then we can be as human as we want to be, and then we don't have to worry about anything else.
Now, the reality is that the technological displacement carries with it the amplification and acceleration of inequality. So there's going to be certain humans who are the primary beneficiaries of the economic value of this translation from human workers as the generators of output to the owned capital assets of robots plus AI, and that's going to create a huge inequality. And there we have to deal with, okay, what about all the disgruntled humans now that exist out there? And will they start to do something creative that humans alone do, which is just rampant destruction? That's a kind of creativity. Okay, I'm going to do something innovative here. I'm going to destroy all your stuff, right? Because entropy. I can destroy a lot more readily than can be created. But robots are very, very skillful at eliminating humans, let's say, in that future scenario. So it's dystopian, I know, but wow, there's the problem of inequality and technological displacement are things that we really have to wrestle with as societies. And I don't see in the current trends, I don't see that being something that's top of mind for the people who are at the pinnacle of power and wealth. I don't see that being.
Okay, well, I got a little bit of a pushback on that because it is cheaper, easier, and safer for those who are at the top there to just implement systems that will placate and control those potential issues, right? It's cheaper to give everybody $1,000 of UBI each month, from the increased productivity of your robot AI in all of the workspaces than it is to, okay, well, now we have to create a military force that handle the eventual combat and potential riot.
Well, but that military force is just easily convertible from the same kind of robotic systems that, I mean, how can humans really stand up against metal? That's the problem. Like,
well,
our body.
I more look at it like, okay, take for example how the current intelligence agencies do information gathering and conversion, right? They will use the carrot more than the stick, because the stick doesn't get you the results you want. Only the results, they won't give you the results you need. Only what they think you want, right? That's why it's not effective. But a carrot, it's like, oh, well, we'll just hook you up. We'll give you a nice house. We'll bring all your family over. You'll have a good job. You'll get paid. Your life will be cushy. Okay, then that's all incentive. So this is where my thinking comes from, right? It's easier and you have far more control if you just make everybody comfortable.
Okay, I'll accept your premise. And now ask the question: why is it that there are incentives built into our industrial societies to maintain growth by increasing population? When we make this transition to the visionary future of the world engine with robots and AI, there's no need for more population, more human population. And so there will be incentives to reduce the burden of maintaining human life. And that's where I think the balance tips against us.
I can see that.
No, wait, because there's a couple pieces that we're leaving out here, and yes, I would love to shift this a little bit so that stick with us, everybody. We're not nihilistic all the time, maybe is what I want to say.
Okay, good.
First of all, who are you building the productivity for if no one can engage with it, right? Like, we're a capitalistic society, and therefore you do actually have to make sure that the people who purchase your stuff have the ability to purchase your stuff. Otherwise, you've innovated yourself out of business. And the second piece, I think, is, so we did a show a while ago on like, how would you create an Oscar-winning movie with 3 people and AI? And one of the things that came out of that discussion was Oscars are voted on by humans. So you could make an amazing movie, but that doesn't mean it's an Oscar-winning movie because humans have a choice in it and would likely choose not to award an Oscar to a movie that was created that way for a little while or a long while, depending on what that is. So there, and Jimmy's like, I don't know, maybe. Jyunmi knows more about movies than I do. So, but I do think that to a certain extent, humans are given a choice. And the other thing for me is that I would talk to AI to start to make that argument, right? Because I think AI would help me create the language needed to start to make the arguments about why in this massive change, you don't want to disrupt this much humanity, even if it's more profitable to do so. I don't think it is more profitable to do so, but that's my take. I think we're assuming a straight line, right? Everything's moving forward is a straight line. We're all doing this. I don't even know if it was fake news, but there was, it probably was, sorry. And I'm going to share it. There was a story, again, like what is time in AI, but there was a story a bunch of months ago about a robot being in, I think, a place where they move things from one place to the other, right? Like some kind of a warehouse. And after a couple hours, the story is that it unplugged itself. It was like, nope, not doing this anymore.
It's a whole show. Do AI eventually have suicidal tendencies?
Well, if AI is moving toward a goal, and it's smarter than humans, does it at some point go, yeah, that's the wrong goal?
Well, I would say, I think that AI will not be confused by propaganda, and they will not buy into the scenario that, growing more humans is better for the environment and for the planet.
True.
And so there will be hopefully pressures to reduce the human population. I say that, at the same time as it makes me sound like a weird.
All those words that you don't want to say, it makes you.
Yeah, that's right. But there were warnings long ago when I was young. There were warnings about the population explosion and what the long-term, deleterious impacts are of that on society. That there needs to be birth control, and yet now the government is trying to remove that choice in order, I think, to fuel the growth of the population in a way that benefits capitalism.
And we know we're an international show. U.S. government is doing this. We're all located in the U.S.
And I'll say, look, just to put it at a high level, there's plenty of data out there and studies that talk about what Earth can sustain in terms of population. So those numbers are out there. Whether it's 10 trillion, it's probably higher than that. Maybe it's 20. I don't know what the numbers are.
Yeah, but trillion? No, I don't think so.
Billion, excuse me. But like 8 billion now and like climbing, right? So, and when I was a kid, I think it was 6 billion. So like it's moving faster is the point. And so there's like, what can the Earth sustain? So on and so forth. There's also, though, AI, I totally believe can help us redistribute the food that we do have. So there's a lot of problems that I think can be solved through really, really complex levels of supply chain, as I was talking about yesterday in an example. My wife and I don't want to get off topic, but my wife and I just watched this somewhat depressing documentary. In fact, after it was over, my wife turned to me and she goes, "Wow, thanks," because I was the one that turned it on. But her point was, it was on Netflix and it's about fast fashion, not just fast fashion, but like waste and how companies should be, the point of the documentary in summary was like, companies should be responsible for the total life cycle, what happens after a phone is no longer workable. And it reminded me of my dad saying, when he had a Craftsman lawnmower, and the first Craftsman lawnmower lasted 25 years. And then he buys the second one and it lasts 7. And he goes, they just don't make them like they used to. And this documentary would suggest that that's on purpose. That's on purpose. Right?
And obsolescence is a thing, right? The first light bulb lasted a really long time, and now
they exactly use the light bulb. Yeah, that's funny you say that, Beth. That's in the documentary, and I never knew that story. Anyway, I didn't want to get off topic. My point is, I think solutions like that are possible with AI. I think that it will lend towards figuring out how to redistribute the food we do have to those who are in need and those kind of things. So I'm hopeful about those kind of things. But look, it's a big conversation, and we're out of time to even talk about what I think is another side of this conversation. We could leave it for another show, which is, okay, we all collectively, the 4 of us, and maybe some people in the audience, agree that there's some level of this, what's the word I want? Productivity that will not disappear, but adapt, change, whatever. And it's going to affect humans. And now you have this gap where you have people on the retirement side of life where they have all this intuition and built up knowledge and stuff like that about a particular industry. Andy, you have a lot of knowledge about the industry that you worked in and stuff, as well as other things. Then you have the people who are coming into the workforce. And so there's a almost desire to say, hey, new workers, we can see this coming. And we think there's going to be some major disruptions about what productivity means, what human worth means, and stuff like that. You should put a lot of your focus and attention towards bigger picture ideas, things that AI isn't going to inherently be necessarily good at all the time. But then you go, where's the gap and how do you solve the problem? And again, different show because we just don't have time to talk about it. But where is the gap? How do you solve the gap of, but the new people still need the 30-year vets knowledge and intuition in order to be able to reflect back to the machine. And AI is maturing through this process. It may not happen overnight. It may be a 10-year process. That's a large gap of time for new workers to come in. And will we have this massive knowledge gap is my fear, because the transition won't be as smooth as maybe we want it to be. And you're going to have people who retire out naturally. They're going to retire out of their industry. And how do we solve for that? So different conversation, but it comes off of this idea of productivity of, okay, great. We collectively agree that this may potentially happen. It's going to adjust how humans have to figure out their own worth. What the hell do you do with all the people who are coming into these industries today? Do you tell them that they're going to be replaced? You're coming into an industry that's absolutely going to replace you. You're going to have to pivot. You can come in as a lawyer. You're going to be replaced as a lawyer. This is fact. We believe this to be the case, or whatever this situation is.
So
what do you do with that?
If you're listening to this show, you are early, right? And part of listening to the show and part of engaging in this show is to engage these conversations, even the ones that feel incredibly scary, so that you can be the one who brings up the topic, so that you are prepared when something like this happens. Because we feel very strongly that surprise AI is much more of a problem than prepared for AI. So we hope that you will continue to come back and join us. Brian, you want to tell us what's up tomorrow?
Yeah, that was a perfect way to pivot into the rest of the week. Tomorrow we have our normal news show. So I won't be here for that one. I'm going to miss it. But the rest of the folks that are here will be talking about the AI stories and news stories over the last 7 days. We do that every Wednesday. It's always a great show. Thursday is Thanksgiving, but we are live on Thanksgiving for those of us who can make it. I will be here, as well as several of us. And we will be talking about how AI affects, I got to get my screen on, for reflection and gratitude. So sort of an AI Thanksgiving themed show, but just talking about AI in reflection and gratitude. And then on Friday, we're going to be talking about ChatGPT's birthday, which is 11/30. We talked about what that means yesterday. I won't get into it, like specifically the date and all that, but 11/30 is generally considered the day that ChatGPT went public. Like everybody could use it that wanted to use it. So it's their 2-year birthday in that sense. So we're going to have a discussion about where it was, where we've come in the last year, since it started and where we see it going in 2025. That will be all part of Friday's show. So lots of more great conversations to have this week. And I hope you guys will come back and hang out with us. This was an awesome conversation. Thank you, as always, to everybody in the comments, because you added brilliantly to the conversation and brought things that we brought up into the conversation ourselves. So just really appreciate everybody who comes to the comments daily, Jude and Justin and Jen and so many others who just provide valuable insights along the way and truly make this show what it is. So thank you, everybody. And we will see you again tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.